Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to another PODFIC read by yours truly, Hollow Audio. I hope that you're having a phenomenal day. Today, we'll be reading another installment of Ghost in NYC. As mentioned before, I did get permission from both creators, ASharksReadingGlasses and The Stove is on Fire, to read this series because it was a work created through a combination of both of their efforts. And I'm very honored and proud they gave me permission to bring this to an audio format. Hopefully I do it justice. In case I don't, I apologize in advance. So, this is the second installment of Ghost in NYC by ASharksReadingGlasses, which was based on the comics drawn by The Stove is on Fire. This second fic is called Super Sensations. It is a teen and up audience. Archive warnings include graphic depictions of violence. The fandom includes Danny Phantom, Spider-Man all media types, Deadpool all media types, and the Marvel Universe fandom. Relationships include Danny Fenton and Peter Parker and Wade Wilson. Characters include Peter Parker, Danny Phantom, Wade Wilson, and Danny Fenton. Additional tags: friendship, let the shenanigans begin, mischievous Danny, Wade is just along for the ride, Danny has a shit sense of humor, and a dark one. Dark humor, this is only slightly darker than the last one. Ghost headcanon, ghost theory, also puns. Very, very bad puns. Swearing. This fic is 3,260 words. It is one chapter. And if you've never read this series before, I encourage you to check out the links below. Read it. It is phenomenal. It's also very long, so this is going to be an ongoing series. The summary: Danny builds up the courage to hang out with Spider-Man before the heroes patrol over some greasy fast food, and they both divulge some of the science behind their powers. Then, Danny's mischievous side strikes again, and not necessarily in a good way. Danny Phantom has decided to mess with Spider-Man. It was super effective. Without further ado, this is Super Sensations. Danny gulped past the nerves in his stomach as he held his phone away from his face, the screen a beacon in the dark hotel room. Jazz had turned in for the night, so Danny had felt safe enough to pull out the note Spider-Man had given him and carefully save the hero's number and started a simple text. Now all he had to do was send it. Of course, he had texted Tucker and Sam earlier, sharing the photo Spider-Man had taken with him, telling them both about the note and asking them if they thought he should do it. They had both blown up his phone with texts in seconds, encouraging him to take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Danny breathed deeply one last time and hit send. To Arachnophobia. It's Ghost. From Arachnophobia. Hey, it's the Ghost. What's up, man? To Arachnophobia. That option to hang out still open? From Arachnophobia. Absolutely, dude. When are you free? To Arachnophobia. Pretty much whenever. I have to be back at the hotel by 5, but other than that, I'm good. From Arachnophobia. Sweet. Meet me here tomorrow at 1 p.m., and I'll bring the best burger you've ever had. To Arachnophobia. To Arachnophobia. I'll see you then. Danny floated invisibly around their designated meeting spot 15 minutes before the scheduled time. His tail nervously twirled and tying itself in knots. He had gotten another text from Spider-Man while he was at the Natural History Museum early this morning. He reached for his phone and checked the text again. From Arachnophobia. Hey, so a friend of mine has decided to be an asshole and says he's going to hang out with us. If that bothers you, we can totally reschedule. He won't be there for a while, so we still have time to chat if you want. To Arachnophobia. Do you mind if I meet up with you a little early so I can talk to you a bit and think about it? Is he another hero? From Arachnophobia. No problem, man. And kind of. He doesn't like to be called a hero, but I trust him regardless. Danny put his phone away and circled a few more laps around the apartment building they had decided to meet at, floating higher off the ground as he went until he was nearly at the roof. Hey, Phantom, over here! Spider-Man yelled behind him, and Danny leaned back over in the air until he was upside down. Danny really was going to have to ask how he kept sensing him. Spider-Man was sitting on the roof of a ledge of the apartment building facing a park, waving excitedly with one hand while the other held up 2 bags of takeout. The bag had the stylized words stove in a box, with the top line of the T reaching over the other letters. There was a slogan along the side of the bags that read, "Stovetop Burgers, the beefiest burgers around." Danny flew over, electing to stay invisible until he was at the roof. He turned visible and reformed his legs so that he was standing, as Spider-Man waved him over to the adjacent ledge and sat down with his legs over the side, placing one of the takeout bags beside him and opening the other. "Hey, glad you could make it," Spider-Man said as he rolled up the bottom part of his mask. "You do anything interesting this morning?" Danny picked up his allotted bag and sat on the ledge as well, one leg dangling while he folded the other. Yeah, actually," Danny stammered as he rummaged in his bag for the burger and started to unwrap it. "I took your advice and went to the Natural History Museum. The space exhibit was cool." "Awesome," Spider-Man beamed before taking a bite, chewing a bit and then swallowing. "That was my favorite place to go as a kid. My aunt and uncle would take me there nearly every week. See if you can try the botanical gardens next. It's a bit of a hassle to get there from Queens, but totally worth it." Danny let out a tiny huff of laughter, thinking about all the exotic plants he could show Sam if he went. "Thanks," Danny said, and then took a bite of his burger. He closed his eyes and let out a little moan of enjoyment, leaning back a bit and floating slightly off the ledge before settling back down. Danny heard snickers and turned to look at Spider-Man while he took another bigger bite of his burger. "Told you I'd bring you the best burger you ever had," Spider-Man said smugly, combing through his own bag and bringing a couple of fries to his mouth. "Kinda glad I'm a ghost right now," Danny said after he swallowed his second bite, smiling slyly, "because these burgers are to die for." Spider-Man coughed into his fries, bringing his free hand to pound on his chest before looking at Danny. "What? Was that a joke?" Spider-Man asked incredulously. "Did you just make a pun?" "It's one benefit of being dead," Danny said, looking over the ledge towards the park and trying to appear lofty while preparing for another bite of his burger. "No one can kill you for making bad jokes." Danny peeked over at Spider-Man when he heard a resigned groan and found the hero's face in one of his palms. "Oh my God," Spider-Man sighed. "You and Wade will get along fine." Danny perked up and set his burger back in the bag. "That's your friend's name?" Danny asked. "Wade?" Spider-Man flinched slightly before deflating a bit. "Yeah," Spider-Man said, setting his own burger down on the wrapper. "But he goes by Deadpool." Danny's brain stuttered a bit before firing on all cylinders. "Deadpool?" Danny repeated hesitantly. Like the mercenary?" Spider-Man flinched again. "Yeah, like the mercenary," Spider-Man said, but then he hastily added, "But he's not that bad, honest. Like I told you earlier, I totally trust him." Danny paused and thought, picking up his burger and taking a bite just for something to do. As he chewed, he thought about all of the propaganda his parents blasted about ghosts, about how they were all evil, and all the horrible things they said about his alter ego. And then he thought about clockwork, and the last words he spoke to Danny reverberated in his head. Everyone deserves a second chance. "Why?" Danny asked. "Why do you trust him so much?" Spider-Man leaned back a bit on the ledge and looked over towards the park. "When I first started out this hero thing, like really started hitting the streets, I got into a bit of a spot," Spider-Man started. "I stopped a real bad deal from going down, and someone put a hit on me." Spider-Man paused to take the last bite of his burger and then leaned back, swinging his feet and hitting the wall. A couple days later, I see Deadpool stalking me while I'm on patrol, and I freak out. I book it out of there as fast as I can, practically led him on a wild goose chase all over New York. Eventually, I ran out of webs, I got cornered on the roof, and I thought, this is it. I'm dead. Danny floated off the ledge in anticipation, ringing his ghostly tail that had formed in his absent-mindedness while Spider-Man continued. And then he says, "Hey, Spidey," Spider-Man says in a mocking deep voice. "I'm a huge fan." Danny blinked owlishly, and Spider-Man laughed at his bewildered expression. "Yeah," he says fondly. "Turns out he was watching my back, making sure I didn't get blindsided by another mercenary because he has a thing against killing kids. That made Danny pause. Most of the ghosts he fought were all too willing to go all out against a child. So, what? Danny huffed in slight disbelief, setting his own burger down in his bag. He's a merc with an honor code? As soon as he asked the question, Danny froze as his breath misted. A ghost? Here? But he didn't have enough time to look around when they were ambushed. Nope, a voice shouted from behind them, an arm appearing in Spider-Man's shoulder. Spider-Man flinched while Danny shot up in the air as he turned intangible. I'm a merc with a mouth. God damn it, Wade, Spider-Man yelled as he turned, slapping Deadpool's arm off his shoulder and punching him in the arm. I told you to stop doing that. Danny slowly drifted downwards, back towards his spot as his core thrummed with excess energy before gradually going back to normal, making sure that he stayed intangible as Spider-Man continued to berate Deadpool. He eyed the shade that had wrapped itself around one of Deadpool's arms, and it stared back at him. This the ghost kid you were talking about? Deadpool asked as he put both of his hands on Spider-Man's shoulders and leaned into him with all his weight. He's so tiny! Oh my god, he's adorable! Spider-Man groaned in annoyance and elbowed Deadpool in the chest. Deadpool flinched back with a soft huff. Wade, Spider-Man said in seriousness as he pushed Deadpool off. He's jailbait. I can and will tie you up and leave you here, dangling off the edge of this building. And by adorable, Deadpool said with fake cheer as he settled himself on the ledge on the other side of Spider-Man, I meant puppy-like and harmless looking. Danny felt a bit miffed about that. It wasn't his fault he hadn't hit his growth spurt yet, and that guys like Deadpool and Dash ate 2 whole cows for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Feeling a rush of reckless bravery, Danny turned tangible and settled on the ledge, leaning over and flipping Deadpool off with the whine of an ectoplasm forming in his middle finger. Oh, screw you, Danny said with mock offense. Considering I know a ghost puppy that is 10 times scarier than you are, I'll take that as a compliment. Deadpool stuttered in indignity, while Spider-Man threw back his head in laughter. Danny, Spider-Man said as he caught his breath, this is my asshole friend, who is actually a pretty nice guy. Wade, also known as Deadpool. Wade, this is Danny Phantom. Deadpool faked a shocked gasp and brought his hands to the side of his face in mock offense. Spilling my secrets already, Spidey? Oh, the betrayal! Deadpool brought his hands down and kicked his feet. Also, stop telling people I'm nice. You're ruining my street cred. Spider-Man smiled good-naturedly while munching on a few more fries, and Danny chuckled quietly until he hiccuped on more cold mist. Both Spider-Man and Deadpool paused. Hey, Phantom, Spider-Man started hesitantly. Are you okay? What was that? Danny sighed as he finished the rest of his burger, hiccuping on another ghostly breath. I call it my ghost sense, Danny answered, taking a moment to glare at the little shade that had migrated from Deadpool's arm to arch around Spider-Man and siphon off some of his excess ectoplasm. It happens when another ghost is around. Don't worry, it'll stop eventually. Spider-Man stammered, looking over the roof and the street below. There's another ghost here? You don't have to worry about it, Danny reassured as he discreetly shooed the shade away, watching it slink back to Deadpool in his periphery. It's just a shade. A what now? Deadpool asked. A shade, Danny explained, balling up his wrapper. It's basically a charged ball of ectoplasm that has been imprinted with emotions. It's kind of like a baby specter. Wait, Spider-Man asked as he grabbed another handful of fries. Isn't a specter and a ghost the same thing? It's just the way they're classified, Danny clarified, playing with his balled wrapper between his hands. Ghosts are just a category of ecto-entities, or beings made of ectoplasm. Shades are the weakest, but if they eventually gather more ectoplasm into themselves, they can become poltergeists, wraiths, or specters. So you're really a ghost then? Deadpool asked, putting his head in his hand and leaning his elbow on one of his legs. Not a mutant with ghostly powers, an actual ghost. Kinda, Danny mused, throwing his paper in his takeout bag and wringing his ghost tail that had formed again. The other ghosts I know call me a halfa, though I don't know if that means I'm half ghost and half human or half alive and half dead. That sounds complicated, Deadpool said as he perked up excitedly. How the fuck does that work? Wade! Spider-Man hissed, slapping his arm from under his head. You can't just ask that. Well, Danny answered, letting go of his tail and bringing one hand to tap at his chin in thought. It depends. Sometimes I'm half in the grave, and sometimes I'm half out of it. Spider-Man sighed in exasperation, and Deadpool sat up and made a single, tiny clap with his hand. That's it, Deadpool announced. I've decided. Spidey, I'm replacing you with Phantom as my new platonic superhero soulmate. You no longer have soulmate privileges. Wade, no, Spider-Man groaned. Wade, yes, Deadpool replied, while shaking Spider-Man by his shoulders. It's perfect. I'm forever undying. He's periodically dead. And we even share the same alter ego initials. Come on, Spidey. It's practically fate. Wade, Spider-Man said in irritation. Yeah, boo, Deadpool responded, and Spider-Man reached into his takeout bag again and pulled out a tapioca ball tea. Drink your bubble tea and shut up. Spider-Man sighed as he shoved the tea into Deadpool's arms. Fine, Deadpool conceded as he rolled up the bottom of his mask and sipped his drink, leaning slightly into Spider-Man. You can keep your privileges. Danny chuckled as Spider-Man groaned in aggravation again before Danny decided to delve deeper into the current topic. Hey, Spider-Man, Danny started, nibbling on some fries. Could you explain something? How the heck did you even know I was here? You knew I was around you yesterday and today, even though I was invisible. Oh, Spider-Man replied excitedly, bringing out the rest of his fries from his takeout bag. That's my Spidey sense. It lets me get a better idea of my surroundings and alerts me if I'm in danger. I'm not really sure how it works. I thought it had something to do with my spider mutation, but now I'm not sure. Danny asked, confused, scratching his hair. Your what now? My spider mutation. See, spiders have these tiny microfiber hairs covering their entire bodies that help them feel vibrations in the ground and the air, Spider-Man explained, picking at some fries while Deadpool slurped on his bubble tea, stealing a couple of Spider-Man's fries every now and then. So, I have something like that too, but whenever I'm around you, my spider sense always goes off. Hey, Phantom, do you have any idea why my spider sense goes crazy when you're around? Danny paused, fries frozen halfway between his mouth. Still feeling miffed at the harmless puppy comparison, Danny got a wonderfully awful idea and put his fries back in his bag. I have 2 guesses, I think, Danny started, making a great show of tapping his chin again. I'm still considered an ecto-entity, meaning I'm at least partially made up of ectoplasm. But ectoplasm is basically an energy source, depending on what state it's in. What? Do you mean like if it's a solid or a liquid? Spider-Man asked. No, not exactly, Danny answered while waving his hand. Ectoplasm is like I can't think of the word. It's like cornstarch and water? A non-Newtonian fluid? Spider-Man filled in as he continued to snack on his remaining fries. Yes, Danny snapped his fingers and then pointed them at Spider-Man. A non-Newtonian fluid. Basically, the more powerful and energetic a ghost gets, the more solid and tangible they are. But at some point, a ghost can get too powerful that they basically start leaking ambient ectoplasm around themselves. Huh, Spider-Man said, hand stilling in the motion to obtain more fries. What's your second guess? Danny made a show of tilting his head and smiling innocently. You said your spidey sense goes off if you're in danger, right? Danny asked. Spider-Man stammered nervously. Yeah. Danny's smile turned devilish as he turned his hand intangible and put it midway through Spider-Man's chest. Spider-Man made a noise of choked surprise while Deadpool watched with interest. I can literally rip out your lungs whenever I feel like it, Danny said, using his ghost voice and making sure to smile wide enough to show off his sharper teeth. Sam and Tucker had told him his ghost voice sounded like a mix of static and words stitched together from a different radio channel, but to Danny, it just sounded a bit more deep. Immediately, Spider-Man jolted and crushed his container of fries in his fist while Deadpool choked on his bubble tea, swiftly turning his head to spray out his drink and coughing out tapioca balls to the street below. Danny quickly pulled out his hand and drifted in front of them, floating on air as he curled into a ball and tried to contain his laughter. "Okay," Deadpool said with shaky cheer after he caught his breath, and Spider-Man clutched his suit where Danny's hand had been. "Where's your receipt? Because I would like a refund. Your platonic superhero soulmate status is revoked." Still shaking with stifled chuckles, Danny uncurled and oriented himself so that he was stretched out on his back, looking at the pair upside down. "Still think I'm a harmless-looking puppy?" Danny asked, making his eyes glow a little more intensely. Both Spider-Man and Deadpool bristled, and Danny concluded that now would probably be the time to reassure them. He turned over on his stomach and laid his head on his hands, lowering the intense glow of his eyes. "You should have seen your faces. Honestly, that second part was a joke. I don't have nearly enough power or concentration to do that. The most I can do is turn all you intangible." "That was a pretty shit joke, Phantom," Spider-Man hissed, crossing his arms while the lenses on his mask narrowed in a glare. So I've been told," Danny shrugged. "But I spent most of my time with ghosts, whose idea of a good time is trying to kill each other when they're already dead. No hard feelings?" Spider-Man and Deadpool glanced at each other before Spider-Man sighed and dropped his arms. "No hard feelings," Spider-Man echoed. "Just don't do that ever again." "Will do," Danny said as he straightened up, his ghost tail curling around him comfortably. There was a slight pause before Danny sniggered and spoke again. "But you really should have seen your faces." "Phantom!" Spider-Man called out in annoyance. "Anyway, thank you for the food. Bye." Danny laughed out before turning tail and heading towards his hotel. All right, everybody, that is the end of this fic chapter. Once again, thank you for listening. This was Super Sensations by ASharksReadingGlasses, based on the comics by The Stove is on Fire. If you have not seen either of them, I have a link to their AO3 account and their Tumblr account, respectively, down below in my summary section. Once again, I hope you'll have a fantastic day, and this is Hollow Audio signing off.